Part 2. The Ancient Mystery Schools. 35. The Angelic Hierarchy. I saw them with my bodily eyes as well as I see you, and when they left me, I wept, and I fain would have had them take me with them, too. Jeanne d'Arc. Dwal Kul, in his teachings, has outlined 7 great kingdoms that are evolving on planet Earth. The Mineral Kingdom. The Plant Kingdom. The Animal Kingdom. The Kingdom of Humanity. The Kingdom of Souls. The Kingdom of Planetary Lives. The Kingdom of Solar Lives. Each of these kingdoms is, in a sense, an incarnation of God. There is only one being in the infinite universe, and that is God. All that exists is an expression of that one being, including the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms. So far I have been focusing on the kingdoms of humanity, souls, planetary lives and solar lives. In this chapter I would like to focus on 2 kingdoms of an order different from that of human beings, the kingdoms of the angels and the Elohim. The Elohim. The Elohim are the creator gods, the beings God created to help him create the infinite universe. In some teachings, the Elohim are called the thought attributes of God, whereas the angels are called the feelings of God. The term Elohim means all that God is. It is plural, so it refers to many gods. This is interesting because the term is used over 2,500 times as the name of God in the Old Testament. So God did not create the universe all by himself, he had helpers, the Elohim. Elohim is also one of the power names of God in the Kabbalah, the book of Jewish mysticism. The Kabbalah refers to Elohim as the Divine Mother. The term Yod-Heh-Vod-Heh, or Jehovah, refers to the Divine Father. Elohim is one of the most powerful mantras you can say. Paul Solomon, in his channelings of the universal mind, was told to have his students use this mantra above all other mantras in their meditations. This is interesting, given that Paul Solomon's early training was as a Southern Baptist minister. The Greek word for the Elohim is exousiai. Rudolf Steiner, the great German mystic, called the Elohim the spirits of form. In the Bible it describes the Elohim as saying, "We in our image, in which humans are created." The Keys of Enoch refers to the Elohim as those beings who created the world by the will of YHWH, YHWH being the Jewish name for the Godhead. The Elohim and angels might be thought of as the left and right hands of God. They are direct extensions of the Creator. Each Elohim has a male and female aspect. There are 7 great Elohim, just as there are 7 great rays emanating from the Creator. Hercules and Amazonia. Apollo and Lumina. Heroes and Amora. Purity and Astrea. Cyclopea and Virginia. Peace and Aloha. Arcturus and Victoria. The angels. There is a lot more information available about the angels than there is about the Elohim because the angels work very closely with the kingdoms of earth. The study of angels is a vast subject. I will attempt to provide the basics and a skeletal sketch of their function on this planet and throughout the cosmos. The first important thing to understand about angels is that they do not have free will as humans have. Angels are direct manifestations of the Creator and have no will separate from that of their source. As I said, they are like God's right hand. When you pray to God, God does not come himself, he sends his angels. There is a hierarchy in the angelic kingdom just as there are hierarchies in the human, planetary, and solar kingdoms. Angels are governed by archangels, the archangels are the directors, and the angelic hosts do the work. They do have specific likes and dislikes and individual characteristics, even though they have been created to perform certain tasks. The angelic evolution is a parallel to that of human beings. The angels who cooperate with the spiritual hierarchy of Earth are focused on the form aspect of the planet. The hierarchy is focused on the consciousness that lives within the form. Because angels do not have free will, they are not yet self-conscious as humans are. They evolve through feeling, rather than through the power of conscious thought. Angels seek to feel, whereas human beings seek to know. It is important to understand that there are angels working in all the dimensions of reality. The angels of the higher planes consciously cooperate with the hierarchy and are considered equal to all ranks and grades within the hierarchy. When people think of angels, they are usually thinking of the archangels who sit at the throne of God and perform services for God at the request of humans. This is not a true picture of the whole process. There is a hierarchy of angelic beings, or devas, to use the Hindu term, moving through the dimensions all the way down into matter itself. It is angels who are the mothers of all form. There are untold numbers of fairies, gnomes, elves, elementals, nymphs, dryads, fauns, nature spirits, salamanders, sylphs, undines, brownies, and satyrs, to name just a few of the other beings that exist. Every plant, forest, meadow, and garden has a hierarchy of devas who are responsible for it. All dense physical form, be it an animal, plant, mineral, or precious stone, is created by these infinitesimal elemental beings under the direction of devas who are each in charge of a particular manifestation. Later I will describe the kingdom of the nature spirits and elementals in greater detail, but I would first like to give you an overview of the workings of the angels on all the planes of reality. Angels are genderless, or maybe a better term is androgynous. They have both male and female characteristics. The word angel itself is derived from the Greek word, angelos, which means messenger. They are the heavenly messengers of the universe. Currently, the third wave of angelic contact is occurring on this planet. The first wave occurred in biblical times, the second wave occurred during the medieval era. During this third wave they are reaching out to everyone. Angels have appeared to individuals throughout history at critical moments. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, was a channel for Archangel Gabriel. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was told by Archangel Gabriel that she was going to bear the Christ child. Gabriel also came to the prophet Daniel to help him interpret his dreams. Jacob wrestled with an angel. There are many good books about angels and channeled from angels in recent times. The two I recommend most highly are Ask Your Angels by Alma Daniel, which is the best overview of the angelic kingdom I have found, and the Starseed Transmissions by Ken Carey, which is a channeling from Archangel Raphael. It is one of the most profound channelings I have ever read. It is also possible to get the book on audio cassette tape with Ken Carey reading, which makes it even more profound than it seems when you read it yourself. The goal of the Devic, or angelic, evolution is to become individualized and then to become human in a future cycle. This occurs for all devas below the rank of Solar Pitris. Pitris is an esoteric word meaning angel. Also, on occasion, it is possible for humans to enter into the angelic kingdom. Angels can incarnate into physical bodies and take on human form, so some of the people you know might actually be angels rather than humans. At some point in the far and distant future, it is part of the divine plan that these two evolutions come together. Angels who have not yet achieved individualization and free choice will eventually be pulled back into Source, ceasing to exist when their missions are complete. Some angels actually do have wings. The spiritual hierarchy of the angelic kingdom. There are many different kinds of angels. The angels most people are familiar with are called, simply, angels, but there are many other names for them, as well. First sphere, heavenly counselors. Seraphim, cherubim and thrones. Second sphere, heavenly governors. Dominions, virtues and powers. Third sphere, heavenly messengers. Principalities, archangels, angels. The angels. The angels are the beings humans are most familiar with, for they are the ones who work most closely with humanity. The angels who are the worker bees work under the direction of the archangels. Each person has a guardian angel. Such beings fall into this category. There are infinite numbers of angels who work with humans and are available. There are angels of healing, illumination, creativity, nature, music, dance, writing and literature, protection, emotions, politics, science and technology, devotion, purity, information, salvation, environment, transformation, peace, art, relationships, purity, and ceremonial order and magic. All you really have to do is invoke them and they are happy to come and serve. The archangels. The archangels have a higher rank than the angels. In some systems of thought they have been called the overlighting angels, since they serve larger areas of human life. It is the archangels whose names you are most likely to be familiar with, especially the archangels who head the 7 rays. Each archangel has its feminine counterpart. Ray 1, Michael and Faith. Ray 2, Jophiel and Christine. Ray 3, Chamuel and Charity. Ray 4, Gabriel and Hope. Ray 5, Raphael and Mother Mary. Ray 6, Uriel and Aurora. Ray 7, Zadkiel and Amethyst. Another way of understanding the archangels is to see them in relationship to the Kabbalistic tree of life. This system presents some archangels you might not be as familiar with. The principalities. At even a higher level than the archangels are the angelic beings called the principalities. These beings are the guardians of large groups like cities, nations, and multinational corporations. For example, one of the beings holds in its heart a unified global order for planet Earth. The powers. The lowest level beings in the second sphere of angels are called the powers. They are the bearers of conscience and the keepers of the collective history of Earth. The angels of death and birth are part of this group. These beings are able to draw down the energy of the divine plan for Earth, which enables them to bring to humanity a vision of the spiritual interconnectedness of things. The virtues. Above the powers is a set of angelic beings called the virtues. The virtues are able to send out massive amounts of divine energy and virtuous qualities to humanity on Earth. The dominions. Above the virtues in the angelic hierarchy are the dominions. These angelic beings govern the activities of all the angelic beings and groups that work below them in this second sphere. They might be called the divine bureaucrats. They also help to integrate and blend the material and spiritual worlds. The dominions do not have much contact with individual soul extensions on Earth. The thrones. The thrones are the lowest level of the highest sphere of angels. They are the heavenly counselors and companion angels of all the planets. The cherubim. The cherubim are the heavenly counselors who work above the thrones in the angelic hierarchy. They are the guardians of the light throughout the universe. They usually do not have much personal contact with beings on Earth. The Keys of Enoch says that these beings are also involved with the keeping of the celestial records. The Urantia book speaks of how the cherubim work very intimately with the Sanabim. They work as helpers and assistants to the seraphim, who are the angels at the next level up in the first sphere of the hierarchical order of angels. The Urantia book has divided the cherubim into 3 categories. In the first are the Ascension candidates. These cherubim are the most advanced and have the opportunity and potential to become seraphim. In the second category are the mid-phase cherubim. In the third category are cherubim the Urantia book refers to as the Morantia cherubim. This term is by no means meant in a derogatory way. It is interesting, however, that the word moron, which is so negatively stigmatized in this culture, probably came from this spiritual category of angels who are not as advanced as the Ascension candidates. All this means is that they will probably remain in their jobs as cherubim and sanabim. The mid-phase cherubim will also probably remain in their present positions, with a few of the more gifted ones achieving limited seraphic service. In all essential endowments, the cherubim and sanabim are similar to seraphim. They have the same origin but different destinies. They are very intelligent, efficient, affectionate, and almost human-like. They usually serve in pairs. The cherubim and sanabim are the faithful and efficient routine workers on planets throughout the universe. They do not serve as attending angels to human beings, that is a seraphic privilege. When assigned to a planet, they enter a local course of training that includes a study of the planetary usage of languages. They are continually engaged in efforts toward self-improvement and, most of all, toward the proper service of their missions. The seraphim. The highest order of angels in the first sphere is the seraphim. These are great celestial angels that are said to surround the throne of God. They are the regulators of the movements of the heavens and have untold responsibilities in the administration of God's infinite universe. There are 12 master seraphim who are working with the supervision of planet Earth. The epical angels. These celestial beings are entrusted with the oversight and direction of the affairs of each generation and root race. The progress angels. These seraphim are entrusted with the task of initiating the evolutionary process of the successive social ages. They foster the development of the inherent progressive trend of evolutionary creatures. The religious guardians. These are the angels of the churches. The angels of national life. These are the angels of the trumpets, the directors of political performance in Earth life. They are also involved in international relations. The angels of the races. These angels work for the conservation of the evolutionary races, regardless of political and religious affiliations. The angels of the future. These are the angels who forecast and predict the future and are, hence, the architects of future eras. The angels of enlightenment. These angels are involved with planetary education, along with mental and moral training as it concerns individuals, families, groups, schools, communities, nations, and whole races. The angels of health. This is the angelic healing corps. The home seraphim. These angels are dedicated to the preservation and advancement of the home, which is the basic institution of human civilization. The angels of industry. This group of angels is involved with fostering industrial development and improving economic conditions for the people of the earth. The angels of diversion. These angels foster the values of play, humor, rest, and human leisure. The angels of superhuman ministry. These are the angels of the angels. These beings are assigned to minister to all other superhuman life on planet Earth. The cosmic seraphim. The Urantia book is like an encyclopedia, not of planet Earth but rather of God's infinite physical universe. It is so unbelievable in its scope of information that it is almost impossible to read except in little tidbits and excerpts. Whether all the information is accurate is hard to say, but what I would say is that it is hard to believe that anyone could make up such vast amounts of super detailed information about the nature of the organization of the universe. I bring this point up only to share with you what this book says about the cosmic order of the seraphim that extends far beyond the scope of this infinitesimally small planet called Earth. The Urantia book has divided the seraphim of the cosmic level into 7 groups, each of which has 7 subdivisions based on the cosmic hierarchy of seraphic angels administering to planets and star systems throughout the omniverse. The cosmic hierarchy of the seraphim. 1. Supreme Seraphim. Sun Spirit Ministers. Bestowal Attendants. Universe Orientation. Teaching Counselors. Directors of Assignment. Recorders. Unattached Ministers. 2. Superior Seraphim. Intelligence Corps. Voice of Mercy. Spirit Coordinators. Assistant Teachers. Transporters. Recorders. Reserves. 3. Supervisor Seraphim. Supervising assistants. Law forecasters. Architects. Ethical sensitizers. Transporters. Recorders. Reserves. 4. Administrator Seraphim. Administrative assistants. Justice guides. Interpreters of cosmic citizenship. Quickeners of morality. Transporters. Recorders. Reserves. 5. Planetary helpers. Voices of the garden. Spirits of brotherhood. Souls of peace. Spirits of trust. Transporters. Recorders. Reserves. 6. Transition ministers. Seraphic evangels. Racial interpreters. Mind planners. Morantia counselors. Technicians. Recorder teachers. Ministering reserves. 7. Seraphim of the future, categories not listed for this group. Each of these groups of angelic beings serves God's divine plan in some cosmic capacity. I have included this little section to give you a sense of the vastness of God's networking of divine beings throughout His universe. Because of space limitations, I have not included a deeper explanation of all the specific functions of these beings beyond their titles. If you would like that information, I recommend reading pages 426 to 442 in the Urantia book. This book is channeled from a commission of beings from a planet or star system called Uvrisa, which they say is the capital of Orvatan, one of the 7 super-universes of time and space of which Earth is a part. The following is a chart from Jeffrey Hodson's book, The Brotherhood of Angels and Men. It is a diagram given to him by an angel concerning the organization of the angelic kingdom. Nature Devas. There are many types of devas, both subhuman and superhuman. There are also many different hierarchies of devas that are distinctly different from the human kingdom's hierarchy, although they work in perfect harmony with the other hierarchies. Dwal Kul has referred to the greater builders as the solar Pitris and the lesser builders as the lunar Pitris, which are the nature spirits. Each group of devas has specific work and methods of development whereby they attain their goals and evolve. The violet deva's path of evolvement lies through feeling, through educating humankind, and through perfecting the physical body. The green deva's path of service is focused in the realm of magnetization of the energies that protect plant and vegetable life and sacred spots on the earth. The white devas guard individuals in the human family and control the water and air elementals and the fish kingdom. The evolution of the devas is speeding up now in synchronization with the evolution of the human family. There is another group of devas who have recently arrived from another planetary scheme. They have already passed through the human kingdom and are equal in rank with certain members of the hierarchy. They have chosen, like bodhisattvas, to stay and work with the earth plane. Dwal Kul has said that there are 12 of these angel masters, 5 work in the violet group, 5 in the green group, and 2 in the white group. There are 3 subsidiary groups. Group 1. Here are found all elementals working with the etheric doubles of humankind and all elementals working with the etheric bodies of inanimate objects. The violet devas are on an evolutionary path. The elementals are on the involutionary path, and their goal is to evolve into the Deva kingdom with the violet color. Group 2. In this group are found the fairies and elves who build and color the flowers, the elementals who work with the vegetables, fruits, and all the verdure that covers the earth's surface. Also connected with this group are the devas of magnetization that are connected to stones, talismans, and the sacred spots of the earth. There is one last group of devas in this group that are found around the habitations of the masters who live on earth. Group 3. Those in this group work with the elementals of the air and sea, the sylphs, the water fairies, and the devas who guard human beings. The solar Pitris are omnipresent superphysical agents of the creative will of the solar logos. They are directors of all natural forces, laws, and processes, solar, interplanetary, and planetary. The solar and lunar Pitris are all subservient to and expressive of God and God's will. The Devas live on all planes of consciousness, etheric, astral, mental, and spiritual. The following chart is from the Theosophical Society's literature. It shows the evolution of life from mineral life all the way up to the solar spirits and solar Pitris. The tiny individual devas that make up the soul body, or causal body, come from the sun and hence are also called solar Pitris. The lunar Pitris make up humans' lower bodies. At some point in the distant future, human evolution and devic evolution will come together. As humans learn to work more closely with the devic evolution, they will learn how to heal and control their etheric bodies to a greater degree. There are also devas with which humanity does not have direct contact but which play a crucial role in transmitting prana, life force, to humankind from the sun. The angelic evolution is on the left side and the human on the right side. Note where the level of individualization begins for each separate hierarchy. Pan and the nature spirits. I am a servant of Almighty God, and I and my subjects are willing to come to the aid of mankind in nature if he affirms belief in us and asks for our help. Pan. Nature spirits and devas are an angelic order. They hold the patterns that underlie all living and growing things on planet Earth. That includes the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms along with the four elements of fire, air, earth, and water. Even human bodies are governed by these nature spirits where they are the spiritual equivalent of the cells, organisms, and microorganisms that work together to make the organs, glands, and tissues function properly. The world of devas and nature spirits is the most wonderful and fascinating reality you can imagine. It is a world filled with fairies, elves, gnomes, sylphs, salamanders, undines, brownies, satyrs, dwarves, goblins, fauns, trolls, elementals, and, last but certainly not least, Pan, who is the god of the nature spirits. It is a world that makes Alice in Wonderland look unimaginative. Devas and nature spirits must be distinguished from each other. Devas are the architects. They are the guiding force that gives form and structure and energy to the plant world. They carry the archetypal patterns for each of the material forms. The nature spirits have a slightly different function. They actually do the work of building the plants. They channel the etheric forces they receive into physically constructing the particular plant patterns they are receiving from the diva. The nature spirits are like the physical workers who carry out the architect's blueprints. They express great delight and joy in their work. They vary in size from a fraction of an inch to elves who are 3 to 4 feet tall. All nature spirits are under the direction of the god Pan. He is a most loving being who serves God by guiding all the nature beings who work under his authority. Pan is half man and half goat in appearance. He has been negatively stigmatized by Western societies, which is unfortunate because all such negativity is based on illusion. A glimpse into the world of nature spirits. The nature spirits are, for the most part, composed of etheric matter, so very few people on planet Earth are able to see them in their full glory, variety, and number. Probably the best account of them I have ever found is in the Findhorn material. Findhorn is a spiritual community in Scotland. It was started by Peter and Eileen Caddy, Dorothy McLean, and Lena Lamont. Later in the development of the community, David Spangler and a man by the name of R. Ogilvy Crombie became involved. The fascinating thing about this group of people was that they each had very specific and unique talents. Eileen Caddy was a channel for God. Dorothy McLean was a clear channel for the Diva Kingdom. David Spangler was a channel for a being called Limitless Love and Light. R. Ogilvy Crombie had the gift of being able to clairvoyantly see and talk to the nature spirits. The combined talents of these four individuals covered all the bases of inner guidance into these unseen worlds. Peter Caddy was not a channel but represented the human worker aspect of the group. Peter was the one who was in charge of the physical work of creating the Findhorn garden. One day he asked a young man by the name of Dennis to cut back some bushes that were interfering with the growth of several trees in the garden. Gorse flowers that had just bloomed covered a particular bush. Peter boldly ordered Dennis to cut the bush anyway. Dorothy McLean, the channel for the Devas, was almost in tears, saying that Peter was butchering them. Peter was quite stubborn and said, "Oh, don't be so damn silly." Shortly thereafter, he received an emergency call from Crombie who asked Peter what he was doing to upset all the nature spirits in the garden. Peter said he didn't know. Crombie came to Findhorn and found himself immediately surrounded by a throng of little gorse elves who were all extremely upset. They said to Crombie, "We thought Findhorn was a place where there was cooperation between man and the nature spirits. How in heaven's name could they have done such an awful thing as destroy our homes?" It turned out that the elves lived in the gorse blossoms. They went on to tell Crombie that they had all left the garden and refused to work there any longer because of this thoughtless destruction. Crombie explained to the elves that it had been unintentional, that this kind of cooperation was new, and that they were all extremely sorry. Later, a little ceremony was held in front of the bushes and Peter apologized profusely. The elves accepted his apology and agreed to return to work. If this happened to Peter in the Findhorn garden, can you imagine what the nature spirits go through on planet Earth as a whole? Humans take such a scientific, mechanistic attitude toward nature, allowing for absolutely no relationship to the infinite numbers of tiny beings who are in actuality doing all the work. Crops are grown almost in defiance of nature, with chemical fertilizers and insecticides that banish the fairies from fields and gardens. We perpetuate cruel and wanton destruction upon nature. It is a wonder these beautiful little beings are willing to help us at all. On the other side of the coin, fairies will draw close to those who love them and who love to grow things. They are obviously very forgiving beings, a trait humans would do well to absorb from them. Some of these nature spirits will evolve into a higher level of the angelic kingdom. Have you ever stopped to think what causes a flower to bloom or to be a certain color or to have a particular fragrance? It is the tiny etheric beings who work ceaselessly to manifest these qualities. Behind all of nature are beings large and small, working under the direction and control of an angel on one of the 7 great rays. These nature spirits are carrying the life force that they receive to beautify the form, color, and fragrance of flowers and plants. You might not be aware that the plant kingdom on planet Earth is one of the most advanced in this entire Milky Way galaxy. It would behoove humans to enjoy the wonderful work the nature spirits are doing, even though humans have lived like parasites instead of caretakers of the environment. The fairy spirits working in gardens usually do not take much notice of humans, however, they do respond to harmonious and loving thoughts. Even stones are inhabited by tiny etheric beings. They are also connected to the jewels you wear, and they respond if you love and treat them kindly. R. Ogilvy Crombie. Crombie tells a fascinating story about his first encounter with the nature kingdom. His story actually began when he was 4 years old. One day he dropped a penny into a wishing well and prayed that he would be able to see fairies and talk to them. Little did he know that 63 years later, God and the nature kingdom would grant his wish. His first experience occurred one day when he was walking in the botanical gardens of Edinburgh. He was sitting under a tree when all of a sudden a figure appeared, dancing around a tree about 25 yards away. It was 3 feet tall and he realized it was a fawn, a being that is half human and half animal. It had shaggy legs ending in cloven hooves, pointed ears and chin, and 2 little horns on its forehead. The fawn danced around the tree 3 times and then sat down cross-legged in front of Crombie, having no idea that Crombie was actually able to see him. When Crombie said, "Hello," he leapt into the air with a start. To make a long story short, he told Crombie that his work was to help the trees. He also said that the nature spirits have lost interest in the human race since they have been made to feel that they are neither believed in nor wanted. He went on to tell Crombie that his name was Kermos. He wanted to know why human beings wrap themselves up in such strange coverings. Crombie and Kermos had a long talk, and Kermos even went back with Crombie to his apartment. He ended by saying that he would come if Crombie called to him in the gardens again. Kermos was true to his word. About a month later, Crombie had an even more extraordinary experience. He was walking along beside the National Gallery when he became aware of a figure walking beside him that was taller than he was. It was a faun radiating a tremendous power. A conversation ensued and he became aware that it was Pan, the god of all nature. Approximately a month later, Crombie was walking in a natural area when he saw a large figure lying on the ground. It was a monk in a brown habit with the hood pulled over his head. As the being stood up, it became apparent that it was Pan. He was over 25 feet tall. Pan smiled and said, "I am a servant of Almighty God, and I and my subjects are willing to come to the aid of mankind in nature if he affirms belief in us and asks for our help." This was the beginning of a reconciliation between Pan and the nature spirits, and humanity. About 4 months after that, Crombie was out walking again when all of a sudden Pan appeared at his side. Pan quickly stepped behind Crombie and then walked into him so that they became one. Crombie could then see the world through Pan's eyes. The moment this happened, the woods became alive with a myriad of beings. He saw elementals, nymphs, dryads, fauns, elves, gnomes, fairies, and other beings too numerous to categorize. He saw 2 beautiful elfin creatures 3 or 4 feet tall. He saw tiny little beings not more than a fraction of an inch tall swarming around a toadstool. Many of the nature spirits danced around Crombie in a ring. All of them were welcoming and full of joy and love. Crombie felt as though he were outside of time and space, which he was. As he walked, he was aware of holding panpipes and having shaggy legs with cloven hoofs. Crombie, himself, began to dance down the path. Then Pan withdrew his presence and Crombie walked home in silence. The Elemental Kingdom. The 4 basic elements of nature are fire, air, earth, and water. Within each of the 4 elements are nature spirits that are the spiritual essence of the element. The nature spirits of earth are called gnomes. The nature spirits of water are called undines. The nature spirits of fire are called salamanders. The nature spirits of air are called sylphs. These beings are made up of an etheric substance that is unique and specific to their particular element. They are living entities oftentimes resembling humans in shape but inhabiting worlds of their own. They have the power to change their size and appearance almost at will. They cannot, however, change elements. Gnomes' work is specific to the earth, and they cannot change into fire, air, or water elementals. The elementals take their orders from the devas. They do remain individualized, as humans are. These tiny beings are animated by the thought power of the lower angels and so are thought forms of sorts. In reality, however, everything in God's universe is created from thought. These beings may be etheric thought forms, but they have etheric flesh, blood, and bones. They live, propagate offspring, eat, talk, act, and sleep. They cannot be destroyed by grosser material elements such as fire, air, earth and water because they are etheric in nature. They are not immortal, however. When their work is finished, they are absorbed back into the ocean of spirit. But they do live until a great age. The gnomes of the earth have the shortest age of the 4, their average age ranging from 300 to 1,000 years. The following chart gives a list of some of the beings that make up each group. There are many kinds of gnomes. These beings have great power over the rocks and mineral elements of the earth and also over the mineral elements in the animal and human kingdoms. The pygmies work with stones, gems, and metals and are guardians of hidden treasures. There might be some association here with the leprechauns. The pygmies are also involved in the cutting of crystals and the developing of veins of ore. The gnomes build their houses out of substances that resemble alabaster, marble, and cement. Gnomes marry and have families. They are said to have insatiable appetites, and they earn their food by their diligent and conscientious work. Some gnome families gather and live in large communities indigenous to the substance in which they work. The female gnome is called a gnomides. The type of gnome most frequently seen looks like a dwarf and is 12 to 18 inches tall. These beings are called brownies or elves. They usually look rather old and have white beards. They can be seen scampering out of holes in the stumps of trees and sometimes vanishing into the tree itself. The gnomes meet at certain times of the year in great conclaves where they discuss the beauty and harmony of nature and the prospects of a bountiful harvest. The king of the gnomes is called Gob, hence his subjects are often called goblins. There is also a queen, but I don't know her name. The gnomes have dwellings, clothing, manners, customs, languages, and governments of their own. They often live inside the earth. They usually wear caps on their heads, long, tight leg coverings, and tunics with a band around the waist. The gnomes are kind and friendly to humans, although they are repelled by humans who are selfish and misuse their power. They respond well to love, as do all the elementals and nature spirits. The food they eat is composed of their own element and is not anything like the food humans eat. When humans develop their etheric vision, they will be able to see these wonderful beings. Undines. The undines are the elemental beings that compose water. They are able to control, to a great degree, the course and function of the water element. Etheric in nature, they exist within the water itself, and that is why they can't be seen with normal physical vision. These beings are beautiful to look at and are very graceful. They are often seen riding the waves of the ocean. They can also be found in rocky pools and in marshlands. They are clothed in a shimmery substance looking like water but shining with all the colors of the sea, with green predominating. The concept of the mermaid is connected with these elemental beings. The undines also work with the plants that grow under the water and with the motion of water. Some undines inhabit waterfalls, others live in rivers and lakes. Every fountain has its nymph. Every ocean has its oceanids. The undines closely resemble humans in appearance and size, except for those inhabiting smaller streams and ponds. The undines often live in coral caves under the ocean or on the shores of lakes or banks of rivers. Smaller undines live under lily pads. The undines work with the vital essences and liquids of plants, animals, and human beings. They are present in everything containing water. There are many families of undines, as the chart indicates. The ruler of the undines is a being called Nexa. The undines love, serve, and honor her unceasingly. They are emotional beings, very friendly and open to being of service to human beings. The smaller undines are often seen as winged beings that people have mistakenly called fairies. These winged beings are seen near flowers that grow in watery areas. They have gossamer wings and gossamer clothing. Salamanders. The salamanders are the spirits of fire. Without these beings, fire cannot exist. You cannot light a match without a salamander's being present. There are many families of salamanders, differing in size, appearance, and dignity. Some people have seen them as small balls of light, but most commonly they are perceived as being lizard-like in shape and about a foot or more in length. The salamanders are considered the strongest and most powerful of all the elementals. Their ruler is a magnificent flaming being called Jinn. Those who have seen him say that he is terrible, yet awe-inspiring in appearance. Salamanders have the ability to extend their size or diminish it, as needed. If you ever need to light a campfire in the wilderness, call to the salamanders and they will help you. It has also been said that salamanders, and the other elemental beings, can be mischievous at times. For example, a fiery temper and inharmonious conditions in a person's home can cause these beings to make trouble. They are like children in that they don't fully understand the results of their actions. They are greatly affected, as are all nature spirits, by humankind's thinking. Sylphs. The sylphs are the air spirits. Their element has the highest vibratory rate of the four. They live hundreds of years, often reaching 1,000 and never seeming to get old. They are said to live on the tops of mountains. The leader of the sylphs is a being called Peralda, who is said to dwell on the highest mountain of earth. Sylphs often assume human form but only for short periods of time. They vary in size from being as large as a human to being much smaller. They are volatile and changeable. The winds are their particular vehicle. They work through the gases and ethers of the earth and are kindly toward humans. They are usually seen with wings, looking like cherubs or fairies. Because of their connection to air, which is associated with the mental aspect, one of their functions is to help humans receive inspiration. The sylphs are drawn to those who use their minds, particularly those in the creative arts. Other types of elementals. There is another type of elemental being that is different from the spirits of the four elements I have just mentioned. These beings are called elementals also but are created by thought from elemental essence. They are one of the reasons it is so important for humans to control their thoughts. Even the elementals of the fire, air, earth, and water are greatly affected by our thoughts, for good or bad. Negative thoughts such as violence, depression, and fear actually create these little beings which are called astral elementals. Edgar Cayce, in his universal mind readings, always used to say that, thoughts are things. As long as you strive for mastery of your three lower bodies, physical, astral, mental, and serve your soul and the ideal of love, you will not be troubled or hurt to any degree by these elemental entities. One way to create negative elementals is to drink too much alcohol and fall into a drunken stupor. You might then see very unpleasant creatures that are not hallucinations but in reality are elemental forms created from the thinking of the lower self, which is out of control. People who give free rein to their anger and violent passions might see kinds of elemental beings that look like an army of devils. They are fiery red creatures about 12 to 18 inches in height, with horns and tails. These can actually be seen by psychics. Depression creates elementals of a more clinging nature. On the other side of the coin, it is also possible to create elementals of a happy and service-oriented nature. All thought that is repeated over and over again draws to it elemental substance. One example could be found in the thoughts of the mother of a son or daughter who has been sent to a battlefield. The love of the mother that goes forth, day after day, surrounding her beloved child with prayers and visualizations of protection, creates an actual thought form which is then ensouled by an elemental. The elemental's task is to carry out the wishes of the person who created it, in this case the mother, so it becomes a shield of protection surrounding the child, as the elemental being strives to carry out the pattern of the thought. Dwal Kul has stated that it is important that a human refrain from manipulation of these elemental forces until he has unfolded the consciousness of the soul and attained a certain degree of self-mastery. Just as the astral elementals can cause problems for a person who lives in victim consciousness, so can the devas of the astral plane. If a person is victim of his physical body, feelings, emotions, desires, and thoughts, he can also be controlled by devic life of a lower order. All dense physical form, be it mineral, plant, animal, or human body, is created by elemental beings under the direction of a deva who is under the direction of a higher deva who ultimately is under the divine architect, God himself. The Findhorn Garden. Dorothy McLean was the woman in Findhorn who could communicate with the Deva Kingdom. During the first year the community of Findhorn was in operation, they grew 65 different vegetables, 21 different fruits, and 42 different herbs. That was quite amazing, since none of the people involved had ever done any gardening before. Dorothy would contact the individual diva of each plant, welcome it to the garden, and ask it for guidance. Aside from receiving guidance about the physical components needed for the soil, the most important thing they could do, according to the landscape diva, was to radiate a sense of love and appreciation to the plants. By the end of a year of following the directions of the devas, they had produced 42-pound cabbages and a broccoli that fed 3 families for several weeks. This was all done in sandy ground that had barely an inch or 2 of soil. In one of the channelings, the devas said to Dorothy, "At this we rejoice and are glad, for the connections between us are greater than you realize, and it seems strange to us that you should be so unconscious of so much of your own being. We see you rather like an iceberg with 7/8 of your consciousness submerged and only an eighth alive. We are in a line of consciousness from the one great whole to the smallest unit of life, and therefore we perform the miracles which you see in the growth of the seed." More about the devas. The devas are differentiated from the nature spirits and elemental beings in that they hold the archetypal patterns for all physical forms on Earth and direct the energy that is needed for their materialization. Most people think of the growth of plants and animals as occurring through natural law. In truth, it is the devas or angels that carry out this law, and they do their work ceaselessly and joyously. There is an individual diva for, let's say, a carrot plant, and there is an overlighting diva who is in charge of all the carrot plants in the whole world. The devas are the architects, and the nature spirits and elementals are the craftspeople who do the work, receiving not only the blueprint but also the energy to physicalize the plan. The devas have no particular form. The word diva actually means shining one. They take on form as needed, and the forms they take when appearing to humans are often correspondent with the thought forms humans hold of them, such as the assumptions that angels have wings and dwarves carry pickaxes. The numbers and kinds of devas are infinite because of the enormous variety of physical substances present on planet Earth which, according to Vimus, has a very highly evolved plant kingdom. There are devas of all the flowers, plants, landscapes, lakes, rivers, soils, gardens, manures, rains, winds, elements, and trees, to name just a few. Each change in the structure and color of a flower, for example, requires another group of builders. When the actual flower itself blossoms, the fairies appear. Most people just plant their gardens. From the deva's point of view, a garden must be sown both physically and spiritually. The nature devas and elementals are so used to being invisible and ignored that it brings them great delight to be able to work with humans who are aware of them and willing to work with them and who treat them as equals, appreciating the wonderful work they do. They are very appreciative of human admiration. It must be understood that the minerals, plants, and animals are not here just to serve humans, but that humans are here to be of service to them, too. In Buddhism, these kingdoms are looked at as being completely equal with humankind, which is as it should be. Each is here to express itself and glorify God perfectly. When flowers are cut, the fairy builders might accompany the bloom for some time. Every garden has not only a beautiful appearance and aroma, but also a beautiful sound. When a flower blooms perfectly, it creates a full chord that is the keynote of that flower. That chord can be heard in a meditative state. Clairvoyant sightings of nature spirits. There is a book I recommend highly, Fairies by Edward Gardner. In it are 5 actual photographs of nature spirits. They were made famous by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, of Sherlock Holmes fame, in the early 1900s. These pictures might well be the only actual photographs of nature spirits ever recorded, and they are beautiful and absolutely breathtaking. I have copied and enlarged them at the print shop and have them hanging in my office. If you are not clairvoyant but have wanted to see fairies and gnomes, then look for this book. It also describes what the 2 young ladies and Geoffrey Hodson, who were all clairvoyant, saw in the glen where these pictures were taken. I have included a number of the clairvoyant sightings and descriptions from this book. Water nymph. I saw a water sprite. It was an entirely nude female figure with long fair hair, which it appeared to be combing or passing through its fingers. Its form was a dazzling rosy whiteness and its face very beautiful. The arms were long and graceful and moved with a wave-like motion. It sometimes appeared to be singing. Wood nymph. 2 tiny wood elves came racing over the ground past us as we sat on a fallen tree trunk. Seeing us, they pulled up short about 5 feet away and stood regarding us with considerable amusement but no fear. They appeared as if completely covered in a tight-fitting one-piece skin which shone slightly as if wet. They had hands and feet large and out of proportion to their bodies. Their legs were somewhat thin, ears large and almost pear-shaped, pointed upwards. Brownie. He is rather taller than the normal, say 8 inches, dressed entirely in brown with facings of a darker shade, big-shaped cap, almost conical knee breeches, stockings, and has thin ankles and large pointed feet like gnome's feet. He stands facing us, in no way afraid, perfectly friendly and much interested. Fairies. Francis sees tiny fairies dancing in a circle, the figures gradually expanding in size till they reach 18 inches, the ring widening in proportion. Elsie sees a vertical circle of dancing fairies flying slowly round. The fairies who are dancing have long skirts through which their limbs can be seen. Viewed astrally, the circle is bathed in golden yellow light, with the outer edges of many hues, violet predominating. There is a tinkling music accompanying all this. It appears to have more of the aspect of a ceremony than a game. Francis sees 2 fairy figures performing as if on the stage, one with wings, one without. Elsie sees a big beautiful fairy quite near. It is nude, with golden hair, and is kneeling in the grass looking this way, with hands on knees, smiling at us. It has a very beautiful face and is concentrating its gaze on me. This figure came within 5 feet of us, and after being described, faded away. Fairy band. There has suddenly arrived in the field a fairy director with a band of fairy people. Their arrival causes a bright radiance to shine in the field, visible to us 60 yards away. The director is very autocratic and definite in her orders and is holding unquestioned command. The band spread themselves out into a gradually widening circle around her, and as they do, a soft glow spreads over the grass. They are actually vivifying and stimulating the growth in the field. Each member of the band is linked to the leader by a thin stream of light. Golden fairy. One especially beautiful fairy has a body clothed in transparent, shimmering golden light. She has tall wings, each of which is almost divided into upper and lower portions. Gnomes and fairies. The gnomes are like little old men, with little green caps, and their clothes are generally neutral green. The fairies themselves are in light draperies. I have also seen them in the conservatory of my house, floating about among the flowers and plants. The fairies appear to be perpetually playing, excepting when they go to rest on the turf or in a tree, and I once saw a group of gnomes standing on each other's shoulders like gymnasts on the stage. They always look happy, as if they were having a real good time. Findhorn and Paralandra. If you are interested in learning more about the devas and nature spirits and the elemental kingdom, the 2 best sources of information are the Findhorn Garden by the Findhorn Community and a book about Paralandra called Behaving as if the God in All Life Mattered by Michelle Small Wright. Michelle is able to see and hear the invisible forces of nature much as Dorothy McLean was able to do at Findhorn. Michelle started a 20-acre farm in Virginia dedicated to a co-equal relationship with the devas and nature spirits. She is an extraordinary woman, and I can't recommend her book highly enough. It is one of the most interesting books I have ever read about the nature kingdom, and I would like to relate some of her insights. Michelle gives a very interesting description of how a plant is actually grown. She describes the archetype, or pattern, of each plant a diva is in charge of as a package of energy. The diva very gradually brings this package down through the dimensions of reality. Once the package reaches the etheric level, it is then the job of the nature spirits to take over. Nature spirits, like devas, are bodies of light energy, but the nature spirits are slightly denser in vibration because of their closer proximity to Earth. If you wanted to change the color of a vegetable or flower, you would have to talk to the devas in charge and they would help to change the package. If you were concerned about how to care for the package once it was grounded into the etheric and physical planes, then you would have to communicate with the nature spirits and elementals. Every garden needs to have a special place where humans are not allowed to go. This was communicated to Dorothy at Findhorn and to Michelle at Paralandra. The space doesn't have to be right in your immediate garden, but it should be close by. It is also important to realize that the creation of a garden is a co-creatorship between the devas and nature spirits and the human kingdom. Most humans pay no attention to the devas and nature spirits, but on the other hand, Michelle tells how she went to the other extreme for a while and exhausted herself doing every little thing the devas and nature spirits wanted her to do. She was finally told that this was not the proper attitude. The devas and nature spirits just want an equal relationship, not to be totally in charge. She was also told by the nature spirits that the best time to transplant was in the evening around 10 o'clock, because that is when the energy of a plant is in its roots rather than in its stems and leaves, as it is during the day. Manifestation. One of the subjects the devas and nature spirits insisted that Michelle work with was the understanding of manifestation. This is an extraordinary sequence of events. She was told to decide what she wanted to manifest and then to contact the diva directly involved with that item. She began initially with the desire to manifest hay for the garden. She contacted the hay diva and made the request, very clearly, specifically, and concisely for what she needed. 2 days later, someone called spontaneously and guided her to the exact amount of hay she needed, for free. Michelle's next more profound and accelerated lesson in manifestation came when she decided she needed 1 cubic foot of manure. She connected with the devas, connected with the manure, and clearly visualized her exact need. The following is a quote from Michelle that describes what she experienced upon connecting with this diva. As soon as I connected, I felt myself lift, vibrationally, to a very familiar level, the level where astral traveling is done. There we waited until suddenly I felt a third energy enter my awareness. We had been joined by the energy of the manure. With great care, we all three moved down in vibration more slowly than I had ever experienced in meditation, or perhaps it was simply more clearly than I had ever experienced. As we moved from one level to the next, I could feel the shift in the manure energy. Eventually, I felt the manure take on a sense of physicalness. I sensed atoms, then molecules, then cells. I sensed form within the nature energy, and eventually, even a slight smell. When I felt it had completed its process, I opened my eyes, and there before me was the cubic foot of manure. This is extraordinary. I know Sai Baba can do it, but he is the cosmic Christ. Here is a woman who with simple attunement to God and the devas and nature spirits is able to manifest physical objects. The principle is quite similar to the way the devas and nature spirits manifest a plant. The diva visualizes the archetypal pattern and package in the spiritual dimensions. Once the image is set, the energy is called forth and slowly made to descend downward through the dimensions of reality. Upon reaching the etheric plane, the nature spirits begin using their energy to physicalize the pattern in the form of the visualization of the devas. Do you see that Michelle just uses the same principle? The only difference is that she visualizes the archetypal pattern herself and the devas work with that. In Michelle's next meditation, she manifested a squash seed that appeared right in front of her. Her next experience was to manifest tools. There are actually devas of garden tools. She describes the almost instant manifestation of tools. She would go into meditation and enter the void. On the level just outside of the void, she would make herself become a hammer, for example. With the help of the devas, she would then descend downward through the levels until she reached the etheric level where the nature spirits would jump in and do their work. When she opened her eyes, there was the hammer. She speaks of the experiences with great humility, knowing they could not occur without the help of the nature kingdom. They can't help eliciting profound respect for the powers of the devas. Most of the gardens and farms around the world are now without nature spirits. They have been so mistreated, abused, unappreciated, and raped that they have retreated from humanity. Without their help, the amount of energy that actually grounds into the physical form is at its bare minimum. The result is empty food with no energy or light in it. The nature spirits end up going to forested areas humans don't frequent. The Findhorn and Paralandra gardens produced such large and wonderful produce because the devas and nature spirits were invited to help and to work with humans as co-partners. A story that emphasizes the interrelatedness of all things has to do with an early phase of the Paralandra garden. Michelle was preparing to visit Findhorn and had tons of other responsibilities as well. She changed her attitude toward the garden, beginning to consider it a drill sergeant. She stopped enjoying the garden and became goal-oriented instead of finding a balance between goal and process. Shortly after falling into this attitude, she found that the Brussels sprouts had been attacked by hordes of bugs. She immediately attuned to the diva of the Brussels sprouts and it said, "When you look at the garden now, you see a half-empty glass. You focus on the negative. You deal only with the work to be done. You no longer see the beauty and what is being accomplished here. Your attitude has unbalanced the energy of the garden, leaving it vulnerable to being overpowered and destroyed by insects. Since you have altered the balance, it is important for you to re-establish the balance. You must understand the power contained in thoughts and attitudes and the integral part they play in the balance of the whole." Most gardeners look at balance only in terms of soil composition, water, and sunlight. These physical components are only one part of the true balance that needs to be sought in a garden. Michelle's negative attitude alone caused the garden to be attacked by insects. Closing down a garden for the winter. Michelle thought the closing of the garden would take 1 day, but it ended up taking 7 days. Just as it is important for the death experience to be handled properly for humans, so is the same true for a garden. Michelle tuned into each plant that had become part of the garden, thanked it for its presence, and released it from the garden. Even though many of the plants were already dead because of frost, the energy, or consciousness, of the plants was still in the garden. You could say metaphorically that the soul had not yet left. The nature spirits that had worked in the garden had moved to the elemental annex, the special spot in the garden just for devas and nature spirits. This process allowed for the proper bardo experience for each and every plant in the garden. It was quite a powerful experience, as I am sure you can imagine. Other interesting information. Some spiritual people who are involved with gardening have gone to the extreme of thinking that if they deal with the devas and nature spirits, they don't have to concern themselves with the physical needs of the plants like bone meal, manure, nitrogen, lime, and water. That would be like saying that humans don't require healthful food because they are spiritual. Another interesting point is how devas and nature spirits feel about the eating of plants by humans. Michelle was told that this was part of the plant kingdom's service to humanity. The nature kingdom celebrates this special relationship and just wishes humans would appreciate and honor it in a non-selfish manner.